based platforms imminently. There was a delay in the launch of the module content. So some of you eagerly might have seen that we said it would launch on the 20th of September. It has been delayed ever so slightly. So you will see that appearing in your Brightspace platform soon. You will, however, also see in your Brightspace platform a recording of the first seminar. So if you didn't manage to attend the seminar over the last couple of weeks, it is a handy resource for you to look over if you didn't manage to attend the facilitated session by Teach First a couple of weeks ago. Again, one of those sessions was rescheduled. So if you were affected by the rescheduled date from the 11th to the 5th of September, then there is a mop-up one taking place on the 2nd. You might have had details about that already. But yeah, really helpful resource in your Brightspace platform if you didn't manage to attend. So in Module 3 of the Primary Careers Programme, you'll start to explore ways to engage your school community with career-related learning. You will prepare a presentation to share your strategic outcomes and your objectives, to share the importance of careers-related learning and the key priority areas with your leaders in school who you will work with to do so as a whole school approach. Finally, you'll create or you'll already build on your existing careers programme and work on developing your long-term action plan to achieve the strategic outcomes. Now, as ever, the content we summarise in these sessions for you are to support you make quicker progress and prioritise elements of the specific module, so in this case, Module 3. However, we do, as always, recommend that you still explore the module content in detail and complete the module activities and quizzes and the extra reading where you can do, just to make sure you're all up to speed on what it is in the content. Now, before we get into the strategy, and you know we like to give you something, Paul tells me off for calling it a present, but you know we like to give you something in these sessions more than just what the module content covers. So to support you with another type of encounter and another wealth of resources, we're delighted to be joined in this session by Jude from Primary Futures, who is going to share insight into the Primary Futures platform and the offer that they have for primary schools through their platform and charity. So I will let Jude share his screen and hope to goodness that technology is with us today. So Jude, if you want to share your screen and over to you. Thank you.
There we go. I hope you can see my screen okay. Fantastic.
Yeah, super. We can see that.
Magnificent. Thanks so much, Hannah, and lovely to see so many of you here today on this Wednesday afternoon. As Hannah's introduced me, my name's Jude. So I am a Senior Primary Coordinator at Primary Futures. What that kind of long job title means is I'm just the first port of call and the first kind of position of support for any of you using our platform, using our resources. And my role, I guess, is to help teachers like yourselves make the most out of what we do. So I'm sure some of you here might have heard of us before, may even have used us before. Some of you might have absolutely no idea who I am. So I'll really start from the bottom up. But the main thing I wanted to do today, often I do these kind of presentations and I kind of run through a few slides about who we are, why we do this. But I thought what would be better today is I actually just kind of go through the practicalities in terms of how you use our platform, how you can get on there kind of immediately and get creating, like as Hannah said, things like employer encounters and also make the most out of those resources I mentioned. So I'll give quickly, just as I'm on our kind of home screen, a little bit of a brief introduction as to what Primary Futures is. So we're a completely free service, which is the core part of our offer. Absolutely everything I'm going through here today is completely free. And what we'll be doing, the main way Primary Futures works is you create something that's called an activity, which is like an advert out to volunteers in your local.
Jude, you've just knocked off onto mute.
Sorry, I've absolutely no idea what that's happening.
That's okay, don't worry.
So you can invite volunteers, and those volunteers can speak to your children within your classroom about their own roles within the world of work. And it really is endless. I always say architects to zoologists. We do have a few zoologists and a few architects on the platform, but it really is like an A to Z of careers in terms of what you're able to invite into your school. What you can see here on my screen right now is when you log in for the first time into Primary Futures, this is what you're presented with. I'm sure after we're done today, Hannah can send across the kind of login details. You can find those on our website as well, primaryfutures.org. And it takes about 30 seconds just to create an account, link your school to it, basically. So what you can see is the home screen. There's a couple of bits that I'll point out before I really get into the kind of nitty-gritty of the way you go about using our platform. Both of which are kind of really useful, I guess, starting points for using our platform. The first is here where it says resource booklet. I'll just click on that. And what we have here is basically a collation of resources that we've made since we've been around as a program, so over the last 10 years, that range all the way from really simple to, the why, I guess, why would you go about doing careers within primary, through to some really practical tools to help you create those employer encounters within your school. Those take the shape of format guides. So if I click on here, we've got some guides to different formats alongside for example, template PowerPoint, some question prompts for children to use, or just a general format guide that's almost presented like a lesson plan if you're looking at ways to create kind of things that are a little bit more interactive, let's say, than just maybe one person from the world of work at the front of the classroom talking to the children. If I scroll back up to the top, I'll just highlight a couple more bits. The second is some pupil activities. So we recognise the fact that whilst great, often inviting volunteers into school, especially for something bigger like a careers week, can be a really big undertaking. So one of the ways that we always talk about kind of embedding careers, so looking at careers kind of across the school year, rather than just in kind of one or two cases, this is exactly what we mean by that. So these are pupil activities just for little things that children can do within the classroom. A really popular one of these is called Drawing the Future, which is a printable activity kind of worksheet where children just draw what they want to be when you're older, which is always one I highlight at the start of the academic year. Not least because I think it's just a kind of really interesting resource from the outset to find out about children's aspirations, but also if you kind of teaching a new class this year, for example, perhaps you are on kind of the lower end of Key Stage 1 and they're children new to primary school. It's a really good way, I guess, to establish, are there any common trends in terms of what my children aspire to be when they're older? Or are there any gaps or stereotypes that are coming out that you'd like to challenge maybe throughout the rest of the academic year? Now, I'll go back onto the main page. Obviously, there's loads more than just those two things I mentioned in that resource booklet, so do have a look. But another one of the resources I would like to point out are our pre-recorded resources. And these are fantastic, again, because of their ease of use. So instead of having to go through a more lengthy process, perhaps, of inviting people into school and organising that, what you can do is download these instant access pre-recorded resources that we've made that are simply just volunteer talks of people from the world of work talking about what job they do. Now, all of these are themed. So the one I've selected right here is our Key Stage 1A Inspiring Aviation resource that has a pilot, an aircraft engineer, and the manager of the biggest heliport in the UK, which is a video resource for length of around 15 minutes of them all talking about what job they do. Like I said, there's a really big variety of these through to skills for the world of work, which might link to maybe topics around kind of resilience. There's within here that might be useful to something you're teaching in school, or perhaps even assembly on similar topics as well, through to some other really popular ones like our STEM jobs in everyday life one is super popular with some jobs in science, technology, engineering, and maths. Now, to fill all of these out, all you've got to do is fill in this form. So how many pupils will take part, what their ages are, what date you expect to use it. And as soon as you press next, you receive all of the kind of YouTube links and a few resources maybe around the particular video that you've selected into your email box. Now, what I'll do now is I'll run through the process, I guess, of Primary Futures, just to make sure that you're kind of aware of the way it works. And you can obviously kind of replicate everything that I'm saying here, but all of it as well is within this resource booklet in terms of how to go about using the platform. So like I said initially, what you do is you created an activity, and that activity is like an advert out to volunteers. Now, I'll quickly run through this kind of three-part process, but all this is both informing us at Primary Futures and the people that you'll be inviting into school what it is that you'd like to do. And the particularly, I guess, best thing, if you ask me, about the way Primary Futures works is that it can be super flexible to what you need, all the way from something like 10 minutes in an assembly, someone talking about their job whilst on Zoom, to something as big as a careers week, or even across an entire month. I'm just going to go through and randomly fill out little bits of information here just so I can show you all these pages. So how many volunteers you need, whether you'd like it in person or virtual or hybrid, whether you have a specific day in mind or across multiple days. So if like careers week, or maybe even flexible across the entire academic year as to when someone comes in. Some more information, again, just an activity date, just to let those people that you're inviting know when it is that you'd like them to come in. I'll go for the latter half of this term leading up towards Christmas, how many hours they'll be needed for, and then how many young people will take part. I'll say you've got about 4 classes, so 120 students from Key Stage 2, so ages 7 all the way up to 11, just selected. The final step here is building a description. What that description is, as it says on the left-hand side, is really important to give volunteers and the information that they need about what you're doing. And when I say Primary Futures is so flexible to whatever it is that you'd like to do, this is really what I mean, in that you really can shape the aims around maybe priorities you have in school yourselves, or if you'd like to keep it really general and just say to people, we'd love for whoever to come in and for them to speak about their job in whatever format they'd like to. You can do it kind of either way. As you can see here, there's 4 prompts that you'd fill out. All these just require maybe a sentence. It is answering that prompt relating to what you'd like to set up. There are some examples here, if you click tutorial mode, of things that we might expect people to put within these boxes. So we want to inspire our pupils with role models from all sectors, broadening their horizons, challenging stereotypes, and drawing links between what they're learning at school and the world of work. Fantastic. Now, once this is filled out, you'd press Let's Search for Volunteers. I won't do this now because I don't want to create this activity on this teacher's account. But what I can do is show you that process by clicking up on Search for Volunteers at the top. This is kind of, I guess, where the magic happens and is definitely my favorite bit of the platform, in that it will show you what volunteers are available both within your local area around your school and further afield. So I've got a school kind of within the Northeast right here that I've kind of previously worked with, I know in one of the earlier waves. And what you can see is a circle, a radius circle around where this school is. Each of these pins is an individual person who signed up to our platform to come into your school. So this person here, Josh Plumpton, he is a paramedic apprentice. You can see where he works, so Northeast Ambulance Service NHS Foundation Trust. We can also see 2 words here, and these just relate to the sectors he works in. I'll talk about why that's important in a second. If you like the look of Josh, what you can do is view his profile, and he'll give you a little bit more information about what it is that he does. So obviously with someone who's a paramedic, it's a little bit more self-explanatory. So he's only put a small description in here, so providing emergency and urgent care to the public. Now, you can click around here, see what's around. So you've got someone who is an accountant, so the finance side of things. I'll just zoom in, have a click around. We've got someone who's a CEO in here. We've got another paramedic, actually, right here. Someone who's the director, he says engine, so an engineering firm, perhaps. So my business helps other businesses in the automotive industry, so making cars, improve the quality of their products and in developing new ones. So basically a car engineer, works in a car manufacturing company, which sounds really cool. Now, what I'd recommend, and this is my recommendation to teachers all the time when they use our platform, is as a first port of call, obviously you have all those resources to begin with, but just go on here and have a little click through and see what's within your local area, because you never know what you might find that maybe links to something you're teaching in school. It might link to something some of your children in one of your classes have been talking about, or to some of those aspirations that you know already exist, or maybe it's about challenging some of those aspirations that you know maybe don't exist, I guess, within your school, within your local community. Obviously, you can affect this search on the left-hand side, both increasing the radius that you're looking for. I'll increase it to 15. To expand that into kind of areas further afield, we always recommend just going as far as you possibly can, because you never know, someone might be some really convenient for someone to come into your school. So never be afraid to invite from further away. For example, this person all the way up here, who's a nurse and lives north of Morpeth. And what you can do as well is filter it down. So if there are too many people that you're looking through, we've got about 500, I think, within this circle. You can look for some of those specific sectors that you might want. Maybe it's linking to a particular part of the curriculum. We've seen quite a few healthcare people, so I'll click healthcare sector and then search. And you'll see there it's narrowed it down to 184 volunteers. And there's a variety of different options that you can choose through in here. My final point, I guess, just on this page is that you can search virtually, which is always a recommendation I have, because you never know what you might find that could link closely to something you're doing within school that's further afield. No one's going to have absolutely every job they might want on their doorstep. The example I always give is people who work in aviation, for example. Whilst you've got a kind of small airport, I guess, near Newcastle, there might be people who work in the aviation sector, particularly in those kind of big hubs in Manchester, Birmingham, or in London as well. That might be able to speak to your children virtually as well. At this point, you might have seen it pop up. There's 14,000 different volunteers on here, at which point, obviously, using those filters on the left-hand side is your best friend. as well as looking on the list. If I just click up here, which puts absolutely everyone that comes up in your search onto a list that's a bit more easy and navigable. Once you've found people you like, all you do is you add them to a shortlist. This shortlist is just like a shopping basket. Then you kind of invite everyone on your shortlist in the same way you check out your shopping basket. From there, those volunteers would accept or decline. They'd say, yep, I can come into your school, or no, I can't. And then you'll be able to chat with them both on the platform, share your own contact details, be it phone number or email address, to confirm that they're taking part, and maybe provide them with a little bit more information and guidance as to what you'd like them to talk about. But that's the main way Primary Futures works. I hope that's been insightful and has hopefully kind of generated a few ideas in your head about different people that you might be able to invite into your school. As I've said, I am the first kind of point of call, I guess, for queries from teachers. So I'm sure, Hannah, if you want to share my contact details after we're done here, please feel free, and I'd be happy to kind of get back to you, any of you, and maybe give you a little helping hand along the way. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Jude. I'm not going to lie, I think that's a pretty good present to give you all at the start of the new academic year. Pretty pleased with that one. I've just popped in the chat the link to where Jude referenced that you sign up for your account. Now, some of you might already use this day in, day out. Some of you might have forgotten that you already have Primary Futures account. Some of you might not have an account at all. So whether that's you in one of those three kind of categories there, please do have a look at reigniting or recreating or creating from scratch your account with Primary Futures, and use this time or just after the session to have a look at those resources. Not only is there a huge platform of volunteers, like Jude said, either in your local area to your school, further afield across the region, and virtually, that can support you, but there's also a huge bank of resources and really great ideas for stuff that you can implement really quite quickly as part of your careers program. Jude, you didn't mention one of my favorite features of the platform, which is actually one that we came across sort of in a transition program that we did with one of our schools, is that you can ask volunteers to really have a specific focus, and you can recruit people based on what their niche sort of specialism of focus area can be. So say you want to have a real focus on equality or disadvantage or even disability in the workplace, you can filter by volunteers that way. If you want to have a real focus on stereotypes and you really want to have a challenge on diversity in certain sectors, then you can filter on that as well. So the platform's capabilities are truly endless, and there's some really great stuff on there for you to use free of charge, which is always really good to hear as well. Thank you so much, Jude. I will pop your contact details in as well, and we'll copy you into the email that goes out to the network when we send out the slides and the recording, so that those on the session tonight, or so that those who aren't on the session tonight can also get in touch in the future as well. So bringing it back to module 3 and moving into unit 2. So unit 2 begins to explore embedding careers across your school. And a key element to this, as you'll all know, having worked through module 1 and 2 already, is senior leadership and staff buy-in. Unit 2 therefore explores how important it is to communicate with those stakeholders internally, but as well as external stakeholders as well. And it encourages you to start developing your strategy presentation to help you communicate that importance with your colleagues. Now, the strategy presentation you develop will allow you to share with colleagues your rationale, your vision, and your objectives for careers in your school, but it'll also highlight opportunities for them to get involved as well, and really encourage them to support and engage in your careers program, making it a whole school approach. So included in the module are some key principles on influence and how you might gain your buy-in from colleagues, and how Teach First have included a guide on that within the content of the module to help you get started with that. There is also a short quiz at the end of this unit, so please ensure you do complete that to enable the progress to be marked sort of against you completing the module. But some really great principles and further reading on influence and how you might bring your colleagues along on the journey with you as part of that unit as well. Now, some of that extra reading includes these 2 blogs that we've pulled out. The links are hyperlinked in the resource, so you can click on those, but they are also within the module content as well. These 2 blogs are hosted on the Careers Network platform. And there's kind of part 1 and part 2, so in the order that they are there, and they discuss the importance of that stakeholder buy-in, but it refers to your stakeholders as either being champions or ambassadors of the work that you do in school. So really championing the work that you do and really being an advocate in supporting that whole school approach to embedding careers. Now, to achieve this change in school with the ambassadorial support, there is a suggestion that you nominate a person within each department to bring you along on the journey. But also, if that isn't appropriate, whether you're in a really sort of small or rural school, then that faculty or key stage approach can have a real successful way of working as well for that for the whole school approach to embedding careers. So finding what works for you will depend on your context, and it'll depend on where you're at in your careers journey. But writing that presentation to really influence colleagues is something that this unit will really look to explore. I'm going to hand over to Paul now, who's going to get stuck into Unit 3 and the strategic careers plan for you.
Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, so hopefully we'll all be in a position, having done modules 1 and 2, to have thought about your vision, to have had a chance to think about what 3 or 4 of your strategic objectives would be, and those kind of long-term outcomes of what you want to have for a school kind of planned. Again, they're likely to be around the 4 key themes of the project. And the next level really is about starting to think about turning that into a full strategy. I think what we want to kind of point out at this stage, and Unit 3 takes you through that in detail, there's lots of guidance there from Teach First, including templates and worked examples of how you can do that. And I think what we'd like to stress at this point really is that we know that you will be in different places in terms of your experience of writing strategy. Some of you, this might be your first kind of middle leadership position or responsibility, so it might be something that you want to dive really deep into. You might be a deputy head, a head teacher who's been doing this for years, in which case you kind of understand that process and have your own ways of doing that, so that's absolutely fine. Don't feel like you need to follow any specific template for that. But I guess what I would like to flag up is that there are certain features that we would want any strategic plan to have, and any kind of more detailed plan for your school to have in order for it to be as successful as possible and to really see through the impact that you want. So the first thing that you would expect to see again is thinking about each of those strategic objectives and setting milestones. So that could be, what does it look like at the end of the first year and then the second year, kind of breaking that down into smaller steps that you'll see. And obviously, it may be that some of your strategic objectives you don't touch at first at all because you're focusing on one through your priority project, but certainly having that clear idea about what's going to happen at certain key milestones is absolutely vital for any plan. High level actions, and again, this doesn't need to be down to the level of I'm going to write this document, then this document. It needs to be kind of high level in terms of the actions, but again, thinking about that as a roadmap or a ladder towards where you want to get, and each of those kind of high level actions being a rung for each of those strategic objectives. Timelines are really important, just to hold yourself to. We know that sometimes they can be movable, and certainly things come up in school, but again, really defining things like timelines and the resources you're going to need for the work, as well as who will be doing the work. And that might not be you, that might be other career leaders or other leaders within the school who are supporting you, is absolutely key to that. So that's really well communicated. And then finally, the other end of that is thinking about what the outcome is going to look like and being really specific about that. So in your plan, making sure that you know what you want the outcomes of your plan to be, how you'll know when it's embedded or been successful, and really being clear about the difference between action and impact within that. So really be clear that finishing your plan isn't just doing the things that you say you're going to do. Have you built in an idea of how you're going to measure whether it's been actually embedded? So if we're saying that we want careers embedded across the curriculum in school, well, my actions might be to deliver some training, to give some resources to staff, but actually at the end, how do I know that that's being used in every class in the school and it's being used regularly? How am I planning that kind of element in as well? So as I said, there isn't one strategy that you have to use or one template for that. There are lots of really good examples on the Teach First site. We also, during Module 2's Community of Practice and Fast Track, shared our own version, which is a bit more condensed than the Teach First one, which you may like to use. So again, the features we talked about are there, and you can see on that page, as an example of one strategic objective broken down into some key actions, and each of those actions then follows through with responsibility and resourcing, milestones and outcomes, and then that idea about actually what would be my next step into year 2 following that as well. So what we will do is to send that blank template and a worked example of that through after today's session. But again, we did send it through as a bit of an example through at the last one. So you might already have one that you've been working on to put in your vision and strategic objectives. So that's unit 3, and it's really all about that kind of starting on that journey of the plan. Don't feel like you need to have that all written in before we go to the seminar or in this module, but it's certainly starting that journey. And it might be that you just want to kind of follow through the strategic objective that's going to be your priority project, the one thing you're actually going to start this year, and then you can add in the rest later on. Unit 4 then talks about something which is slightly different, and that is a careers program. Now, again, this is something that you might start at the beginning and straight away, but it might be something that comes further down the line. That's absolutely fine. But a careers program is a really important kind of document that sits alongside your strategy. And that's essentially your attempt to kind of map out all the activity that's happening as part of your careers program in school. And to hopefully have a look at kind of what the outcomes you'd like to get from it. It's the closest you would come to maybe having a curriculum map or a curriculum document for careers. With the main difference being that actually it's pulling from all the different areas of your curriculum and showing that across. So it's something that again, there's some really nice advice on how to do that and how to put that together, as well as some examples there. But the idea being really that, first of all, what you want to do is just capture what's already happening, because there will already be lots of things happening in schools. So there might be things happening through your PSHE curriculum. There might be links through science curriculum or other subjects as well in what's already been delivered. There may already be encounters and things through things like STEM Week, where you have people coming into school. So the first thing to do with that really is to just map out what's already happening, probably in each year group and each term. You can then maybe start to think about, well, actually, where are the gaps? Where are the things that we aren't doing? What are the jobs or the careers or the sectors that we aren't covering? And that having that kind of careers program, that careers overview, really helps you to see that and to work going forward. So again, I would suggest it's something that you build on over time. A lot of the examples that are kind of shared and that you will see through the module content will be ones that schools have developed over 2 or 3 years, but absolutely something that I think it's worth starting to think about now. Now, with that in mind, again, we always like to give you a few presents. So something that we launched and developed just before the summer is an example of how you might do that careers program or careers overview. So you'll be aware of the CDI framework that was mentioned earlier in the modules. And again, the CDI framework helps to map out what some outcomes might look like for pupils at different phases of education in terms of careers. And the document that we've got to share, and again, it's a template you can take and adapt. You can download it and fill it in for yourself and change it for your school. But essentially what it does is it looks at each phase of education from early years to Key Stage 1, lower Key Stage 2 and upper Key Stage 2. It shows you kind of what outcomes you would like to get out of different careers activities at that age range. But then it allows you to basically to map out all the activity that's happening in school. So in case you can't quite see there, for each one, it kind of goes into what are the role play activities that might be there, what visitors are happening that term, what visits are happening, where are the opportunities to link it to books that are being read or part of the curriculum, and where are the other curriculum links across different units that careers might appear in as well. And I think I've always been a kind of a strong proponent for not making a document for a document's sake, and I think this lives or dies by the fact that of how you use it as a career leader. So once you have this document, what it really allows you to do is to say, I know we're doing this and I know we're not doing that. You might get it and go, oh, look at that. Well, all of our encounters happen to be with specifically STEM encounters. We're not doing anything creative or anything like that. So having this document is a really powerful one as you work as a careers leader to begin to think about what you're doing a bit more strategically, and it sits really well alongside your strategic plan. But also it's a really powerful tool for communicating what that looks like with the staff and helping them to see what that whole school careers map looks like. Thanks, Lucy. So just to kind of support you and give you a bit more of an insight, and again, this video is embedded in the modules, but we thought it would be useful to kind of bring it to the forefront today. And it's just some interviews with other careers leaders who've built their careers programs and strategies over time, and just to give a bit of an insight in terms of how they did that and what good looks like for them.
Can I just check that you can hear the sound?
Yeah, that's working. Thanks.
I'm just pausing for a minute because there's been quite a few people in the chat say that they can't see or hear the video. Can most people see it, or is it just a couple of issues that other people might be having with Teams? Yeah, right. Okay, so I'll continue playing. And for those of you who can't see or hear the video, it is in the module content and it will be shared on the slides after. So we'll continue playing it, but then we'll make sure that the slides and things are shared after. So it might just be maybe a glitch within Teams.
Thanks. So yeah, some really useful insights, and just to pick up on a few things that were mentioned there. The first person speaking was Chloe, who actually is part of our Career Champions Network and works in Walker at the moment at Watergate. But she mentions the benchmarks throughout, and again, I wouldn't worry too much about that. But essentially, if you are interested, you can see a little bit more about what the 8 benchmarks are. But essentially, they're just a framework of things that we can do to have a really effective careers program. And again, we'll continue to work with you with those beyond the kind of length of the pilot. But with that in mind, just some things that might help you. And again, don't worry too much about the kind of definitions, but primary benchmark 1 is about having a stable careers program and the leadership of careers in your school. On our website, and the link is there, and we will share that as well. There are a few of the resources that I just mentioned that'll help you in developing that careers program. So on that page, there's a presentation that you can use and adapt to introduce career-related learning to your staff and to share the kind of rationale behind it and how you might embed it in the curriculum. There's the overview template that we just shared with you as well that links to that CDI framework. It helps to give you that idea about what a progression might look like as well, and would help you to map things out. And there's also a number of example careers programs from other Northeast primary schools. So examples of how they've tackle that job of mapping out what happens in their school. And I think the important thing to note there is that no two are the same, and there are some features across the others, but certainly feel free to make your careers program bespoke to what you feel is right in your school. So that covers strategy and the careers program for this element. And Lucy's going to take over now and talk you a little bit through the priority project and preparing for the next seminar.
Thanks, Paul. So in module 2, we began to explore ideas for your priority project. And this could be something to focus on in terms of just one of your strategic objectives, something that you're going to implement in school this academic year. And I know we went into a little bit more depth about the priority project in the last module twilight session that we did, but we just wanted to do a bit of a recap in terms of now it's about implementing and starting to plan that priority project and kind of start building that moving forward through this academic year. Oh, so if my slides are going to work. So your priority project could range from looking at ways to embed careers activities into your assembly program, or looking at creating an employer database and build those connections with local employers to support your careers program within your school. But as both Paul and Hannah have mentioned, remember, you don't need to do everything right now. It's about focusing on one of those strategic objectives that you've identified and really looking at what that priority project could be moving forward. And just as kind of a little bit of a gauge, and I'm not going to ask for kind of come off mute or hands up or anything like that, but even if you can just pop a thumbs up in the chat if you already know what your priority project is, and if you've already started planning your priority project, just so we can kind of gauge a little bit in terms of where everybody is. If you haven't, then it's absolutely fine, but it's just to kind of suss out kind of where we are in terms of where everybody is in terms of planning and the project. So I think we've got a couple of hands up. Yeah. Made a start already, have an idea of what you're going to do, haven't started yet, have an idea, lots of thumbs ups. What might be an example of a priority project, Lee? So these are a couple of examples of priority projects just on the slide there. So it could be that your priority project is really starting to look at building those employer networks and those connections from your school. Maybe it's something that as a school you're wanting to really broaden the horizons of your pupils. So that could be a priority project in one sense, in terms of starting to build that employer base and look at who's around you and how you can build that within your school or context. Or it could be something like creating that strategic that strategy presentation, that CPD, and that opportunity to share your careers vision with your school and get teachers on board. Fab, thank you. It was just that, no worries, Lee. And again, if you want to have if you have any questions about your priority project, or you want to kind of discuss what you're thinking of planning, you know that you can reach out to myself, Paul, or Hannah, and we'll be happy to provide you with any ideas or support with that as well. So this kind of rounds off really to the end of today's module, and I do have a couple of takeaways as well, or a couple of extra opportunities for you as well before people dip off. But I just wanted to quickly run through some of the kind of pre-seminar 2 actions. So seminar 2 is coming up later in October, but these are just a couple of reminders. So at the end of these kind of module twilights, we'll always give you a little bit of a list of a couple of actions and takeaways. So it's important to make sure that once module 3 launches, which there has been a slight delay, and it will be launched and live on Brightspace on Monday, so Monday the 30th of September. So you'll be able to access module 3 on your Brightspace account from early next week. But please make sure when you're working through module 3 to complete the quiz at the end of unit 2, looking at those principles of influence. Again, look at those sections around preparing that pitch for that wider school community to communicate your vision around careers. Start looking at that long-term action planning, and you can make use of some of those templates that Paul talked through today. And again, we'll share the links to those documents for you to have a little look at, and start building and creating that careers program and what that might look like in your school or context. So again, in terms of that kind of actions around ahead of that seminar later in November, you can start creating your strategy, focusing on your priority project, and make sure that that priority project is aligned and has those SMART goals as well. And finally, just make sure that you complete the quiz, the end of module quiz within Unit 6. So this is just a bit of a checklist in terms of what you need to do ahead of that seminar and also as part of module 3. So the final couple of kind of opportunities that I wanted to flag with you today, we're really excited to invite you to our upcoming autumn local network meetings. So these are network meetings that we invite all of our primary careers network to, so schools that are within our core network, as well as all of our Start Small Dream Big schools. And we're delighted now that we have a careers champion in each local authority area across the whole of the North East region. So the local careers network meetings are coming up in the next couple of weeks, so middle of October. All of the links to register are on the slides, and obviously we'll share these afterwards. So each of the local network meetings are hosted at our Careers Champion School, and we co-deliver the sessions with ourselves at the North East Ambition team alongside the Careers Champion. And really, these meetings are essentially an opportunity for you to connect and collaborate, share best practice, and also foster those ideas around how you can support pupils, and those ideas around implementing careers in a primary context. We'll always share an agenda in advance, but it'll always include an update from your local careers champion about what they're doing and what their focus is. We'll share some new resources, and also we'll be sharing some information around the North East local labour market and how to use this to enhance your careers programme. So we'd really encourage as many of you as possible to come along to those local network meetings. It will really give you an opportunity to be able to collaborate with other schools that are within your community as well. So again, the slides and the registration information will be shared after today. And then another little opportunity and something that's coming up later in the term. We're delighted that we can share with you a save the date for our autumn regional network meeting. Many of you on the call today joined us at our summer primary conference that we held at Durham University. So we're delighted to be able to invite you all to our upcoming autumn network meeting. So that'll be held on Friday, the 6th of December at the Northumbria Health and Care Hub in South Northumberland. We will be sharing some more details, registration details and an agenda in the next coming weeks, but we just wanted to initially share that date with you so you can maybe get that in the diary early, because we'd really would be delighted to see as many of you as possible join us later in the year as well. So the last little bit from us is that myself, Hannah and Paul are delighted to be able to support you as your local careers hub and support you on the national Start Small Dream Big pilot. Part of our role is to really support you to make your make progress across the modules, but also to create those sustainable relationships and partnerships with local employers, and really enable you to create those meaningful encounters as part of your careers program. You may have received an email from one of the team regarding an opportunity to have an employer encounter. If you haven't already done so already, please ensure that you've responded to that, so that we can facilitate that match with that employer and that organisation, and support you to get those dates in as part of the programme. Again, if you have any questions on that, myself, Hannah and Paul will be around for the kind of last 5 minutes of today if you've got any questions. But I don't think I've missed anything else. Paul, Hannah, if you wanted to add anything in. No? Fab. So if anybody wants to stay on the call to ask us any questions, please feel free to do so. We'll be closing the call at 3:30, but we're happy if you want to pop off now. That's absolutely fine. We will be sharing the slides and the recording and any of those links that we've talked about today later in the week. But again, if you need any support on Module 3 or any of the other modules, then please reach out. We will be happy to help. Thank you.